miss us because we missed you. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Sports Advocate. I'm Manistee News Advocate and Benson County Record Patriot sports reporter Mitch Vosburg. Flanked with me as always at a 90-degree angle by sports editor McLain Moberg. McLain, it's been a while since you and I just chatted. We've had a lot of our conversations with coaches for spring sports previews coming up, but how have you been the past couple weeks, man?
Yeah, man, it's been a lot of basketball. Right, I've been indulging in a lot of basketball. My Spartans were in it for a hot second, and then they had to go and blow that. But
yeah,
and now just kind of getting geared up for a baseball season here, both locally and professionally. I think I can't wait for opening day here coming up on Thursday.
Yeah, it's gonna be an exciting time. Can't wait to get the hot dogs out, the Better Made chips.
Don't even get me
ginger
started.
Ale.
Stop it right now.
I'm excited, but hey, you know what? Though we have our Final Four, and holy smokes, what a tournament this year. We were all wrong, man. Yeah. Well, I was kind of right about, the South region being, the kind of region of doom. I mean, they had a 5 and 6 seeds playing in there. I don't think any of us had Arizona and Purdue both getting upset out the gate. I mean, vintage Purdue, right?
Yeah, I didn't. I fell for it again. Just owning up to it. I fell for it again. I didn't think. I was very, very cautious on Purdue. Yet I put them in my Final Four like an idiot because I knew they would lose. But they're just like 7-4 Zach Edey and the guards that they had, and then it turns out, well, actually the guards weren't very good in comparison to the rest of the nation's guards. In the Big Ten, they were great, but against those guys
against Fairleigh Dickinson.
Yeah, they just seemed overwhelmed for whatever reason, those two freshman guards.
Yeah, so here's a little advice to everyone too. If you do 4.5 hours of research, actually follow it. Because if I would have followed it well, I would have had FAU and UConn in the Final Four. In the original brackets, I did have UConn winning the national title, but I chickened out because I'm a little Mitch. Not, the other word that starts with a B, that kind of itchy, but hey, you know what? So be it. That's the fun of March Madness. I mean, you think you have everything figured out, but in reality, you have as good, but you're honestly about as intelligent as a fish trying to climb a tree. I mean,
I think this is the craziest tournament since Loyola made the Final Four, and that one wasn't nearly as crazy as this was. I mean, you talk about 2 5 seeds, a 4 seed, and a 9 seed all in the Final Four. I'm curious when the last time we've had that many, high seeds in the Final Four like this. Usually you see a couple of 1s, maybe a 3, and maybe one higher seed. But yeah, this is ridiculous. This many teams like this.
Yeah, I mean, right now we have, you have a 4, 2 5s, and a 9.
Mm-hmm.
That's not an awful poker. It's not an awful poker hand, but I mean, it's still something. But hey, you know what? I mean, it is what it is, but most importantly, though, like you mentioned at the beginning, we're almost to baseball season, man.
Yeah.
Opening day is Thursday. I got my fantasy baseball draft for my keeper league on Wednesday. I'm so excited for that. But, we're excited for baseball to start, but I think you and I were talking pretty heavily before we started recording, reminiscing about the glory days of the Tigers about a decade ago and how cool that was. And now we're looking at 2023 the Tigers started this rebuild in 2017 with a bunch of other teams, and here's Detroit still stuck in the cellar. It's like they got their foot caught in the well, they just can't get it out. But, I mean, you kind of talked about a couple weeks ago how you're taking the under in the win-losses, about 67. I mean, what are you excited about with this team? Because we have to be excited about something, right? There's got to be a reason why we subject ourselves to watching these games with or without certain beverages.
Well, me personally, I think, you kind of hit the nail on the head before we started recording, too, which is you're going to go over some draft, stats here shortly, and you're going to kind of see where they miss. And to me, this team isn't going to win a lot of games, which means they're going to be high up on that draft board. What gets you excited, to me personally, like back in the early 2000s when I was a big Tigers fan still, too, those Alan Trammell years, 2003, losing 100 games, what got you excited was those players that were coming in. And for me, I mean, I'm sort of a nerd, so I do like baseball prospects. Right now, Baseball America ranks the Detroit Tigers farm system as dead last in Major League Baseball. And we need to do something about that. They have one top 100 prospect this year with Jackson Jobe, and that's it. And so the only exciting thing is hopefully the new GM here can get something rolling and make some good decisions in the draft, I think.
You said that was dead last?
Dead last.
Wasn't 2 years ago it was like top 5?
Yeah. That just last year it was high up. I mean, at least top 10 because they had Riley Green and they had Torkelson, but then they had obviously poor-ish seasons, especially Torkelson having to get sent back down. And now they are ranked dead last. Obviously, those guys aren't considered prospects anymore because they should be on the day one roster.
Yep.
So Scott Harris, yeah, I mean, he's got his work cut out for him here, new general manager. And, yeah, they're dead last farm system in baseball right now.
I am depressed for a second time this morning after you said that. Because looking through all this draft stuff I'm going to ramble about, now you mentioned that, like, oy vey.
Yeah, it's not good. There's really not many great things right now. If you're a guy that can stomach a few more losing seasons, I know, 6 in a row. 6 losing seasons in a row here. 3 consecutive sub 400 finishes too, by the way. It's been a very, very tough go of it. And 2 years ago now, right, they win 77 games. It looks like they're going to make that, right? Now It's sort of that cusp. And then they come back and they have a terrible 66 and 96 finish. And then Avila gets fired, and then you hire Scott Harris, and now it's year one of a new regime. And you're this close to starting the rebuild over. You're this close to starting it over.
Let's just
6
admit
years
it.
into it.
Let's just admit it. It's a new rebuild. Let's just admit it right now. Let's just admit it with all these young guys they have hurt right now. It's a new rebuild.
Yeah, and you just bring up a great point. You've got Skubal, who's not due back until later this year. You've got Maez, who might be out for the whole season.
Yeah.
It's bad. It's bad.
It is. Fortunately, we bring back guys like Matt Boyd and Spencer Turnbull, which, hey, you know what? They're guys that can go out there and give you good 5-6 innings.
They are. Yeah. I don't mind those guys. But they're 3, 4, 5 guys. They're not 1 and 2 guys like they're going to start the year. Yeah. And that's the problem with this team is like when we were talking about sort of those teams of old, right? Doug Fister was good, but he was also the 5th guy in that rotation, right next to Anibal Sanchez and those guys. So, I mean, having Matt Boyd and Spencer Turnbull in the rotation, I think is fine, but they aren't the ace and they're not the day 2 starter either. And it's just Skubal, I think when he's back, I have high hopes for him. Casey Maez, the expectations are just sort of lowering here with the injury history, and these days guys are not, their careers aren't ending over Tommy John, but the length at which it takes to get back
is insane.
Yeah.
So, my personal opinion with the Tigers, I think it's a 72-90 season. I think some of the guys, like I mentioned, you have some decent players. By no means will it be the top 3 of that division. By no means will it be stepping in a wild card spot. That's just the reality situation. But there's no way Javier Baez can hit as worse as he did. He may strike out more, but there's no way it could be worse. There's no way Eduardo Rodriguez can have a season just as worse. There's no reason why Mize, Manning, and Skubal can have devastating injuries again. There's no way. Spencer Torkelson has to, probably take a step up. Riley Green, there's no way he's going to miss half the year again. Austin Meadows hopefully bounces back. Jonathan Scope, you hope, obviously can get you at least about 240, 25, and 70. If he can't manage that, I'm sorry, he's done. Then Akil Baddoo. Oh, that's right, he didn't quite make the roster. Yeah. But here's the thing about the Tigers. McLain mentioned a couple weeks ago, you gotta spend money. I 100% agree with that. But also, too, you have to have a reason. Because, here's the thing I think people forget about free agency and contract extensions. It takes 2 to tango.
Yep.
Yes, Detroit can offer someone like Carlos Correa, somebody, 6 crap loads worth of money. But if they're not invested in what you have, they're not going to do it. So, what exactly is wrong with Detroit to make these players not buy in? Because obviously, 20 years ago, guys like Bud Rodriguez, Maglo Ordonez, and Carlos Guillen bought in.
20 years ago, don't say that to me. 20 years ago.
Hey, it was 2003, but I'm sorry.
That's ridiculous.
I hate to break it to you, but that's the truth. But when you look at the Tigers' draft history, there's kind of a reason why. Let's go back here. All right, first things first, I'm just talking from 1993, 2015, because it's still too soon to judge like the last 7 draft classes. Still too soon. All right. 1993, 9th overall pick, Matt Brunson. Ever hear of him? But have you heard of guys like Billy Wagner, Derek Lee, Chris Carpenter, and Torrey Hunter? Okay. That happened. 1994, ever hear of a pitcher named Chad Gaspar? No, but I guarantee you probably heard of names like Carl Pavano and Scott Podsednik.
Yeah.
1925, 11th overall. Ever hear of a guy called Mike Drumright? No, but I guarantee you've heard of names like Carlos Beltran and this one that hurts like Roy Halladay.
Oh, God.
1996, 6th overall pick. You heard of a guy called Seth Dreisinger? He was also a pitcher. But I'm sure you heard of guys like Roy Oswalt and Jimmy Rollins.
I do.
They won that class. 1997, 1st overall pick. Ever hear of a pitcher named Matt Anderson?
Oh, my gosh. No.
No, but I guarantee you've heard of a guy called Vernon Wells, who I have a figurine of in my living room. I know you've heard of a guy like Troy Gloss, Lance Berkman, and Michael Young.
Yeah.
1998, Jeff Weaver, 14th overall pick. Okay, that wasn't terrible, right? I mean, he still got a World Series with the Cardinals. But you've heard of guys like Adam Dunn, Matt Holly, and CeCe Sabathia that also went in that class, right?
Mm-hmm.
1999, 3rd overall pick. Catcher Eric Munson. Know that name?
No.
But I guarantee you probably heard of guys like Barry Zito, Brian Roberts, Carl Crawford, Brandon Phillips, and Justin Morneau. 2000, 8th overall pick. Pitcher Matt Wheatland. Ever hear of him?
Mm-mm.
No, but I bet you heard of guys in that class like Chase Utley, Grady Sizemore, Adam Wainwright, Cliff Lee, and Yadier Molina. 2001, 11th overall pick. Kenny Ball, pitcher. Ever hear of him?
Mm-mm.
No, but I guarantee you heard the names of like David Wright, Dan Herron, Ryan Howard, not the temp in Scranton, but the first baseman, and C.J. Wilson, who was part of the Rangers staff in the 2010s. Kind of their ace. 2002, shortstop Scott Moore. Ever hear of him? No, but I guarantee in that class you heard of guys like Matt Cain, John Lester, Cole Hamels, and my favorite Canadian baseball player of all time, Joey Votto. 2003, 3rd overall pick, Kyle Sleeth, pitcher. Ever hear of him? No, but I bet you've heard of names of Nick Markakis, Adam Jones, Matt Kemp, and Andre Ethier, who also won that class. 2004, 2nd overall pick. Ever hear of Justin Verlander?
Yeah.
Okay, so they hit on one.
Yeah.
They hit on one.
Yeah.
Not going to argue that. 2005, 10th overall pick. Remember Cameron Maben?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who's taking the pick immediately after him?
No.
Andrew McCutcheon. 2006, 6th overall pick, Andrew Miller. Remember him, right?
I do.
Really good reliever. Do you know who's taking the pick right after him? Clayton Kershaw. Now, Maben and Miller were packaged for Miguel Cabrera. Okay, that worked out in the end. All right, I'll give him that. But 2007, 27th overall pick, Rick Porcello. Not bad, right? You want to Cy Young with Boston, whatever. Giancarlo Stanton and Corey Kluber were also in that class.
Okay.
2008, 21st overall pick. Here's a name Tiger fans haven't heard of in a while. He's a flamethrower. Ryan Perry? Remember him? Yeah, Charlie Blackmon and Craig Kimbrell were also in that class. Yeah. 2009, 9th overall pick. Jacob Turner. Remember him?
Yeah.
Remember him?
He was supposed to be something special.
Yeah, 16 picks later was Mike Trout. 2010, 2011, 2012. All were gone because of compensation picks. Because at the time, if you signed a certain level free agent, you lost your pick. So basically, you trade your first round pick for a player. Those players wound up being Jose Valverde, Victor Martinez, and Prince Fielder. Okay, I get it. That makes a lot of sense, right? 2013, they're back drafting again. 20th overall pick. Have you heard of Jonathan Crawford? No, but there was a guy 12 picks later you'd have heard of. He won an MVP this year. His name is Aaron Judge. 2014, 23rd overall pick, Derek Hill. He really panned out, right? 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 2 picks later, Matt Chapman, third baseman, Gold Glove caliber now for the Toronto Blue Jays. Yeah. 2015, 22nd overall pick, Bo Burrows. He got actually waived and sent to Minnesota last year. Yeah. Do you know who's taking 2 picks later? Walker Buehler. Do you see my point now with the Tigers?
Yeah.
This is where we're at, folks. This organization desperately needed a shakeup in the way how they approached scouting and developing. You look at teams like the Los Angeles Dodgers and the Houston Trash Can Smackers, Astros. They're the teams that constantly have found ways to build talent pools and contend consistently. Well, I think the Dodgers have been at the top of the MLB for the past about 15 years. Yes, they're able to spend money, but they also draft and develop a lot of good homegrown players. All right? This is what has to happen. Because eventually you can also move off these certain prospects to get more players. I mean, look at the Astros specifically. Like, okay, they're able to wheel and deal prospects. I mean, look what Houston did to Detroit 5-6 years ago to get Justin Verlander.
Yep.
And those prospects have panned out. By the way, Alavila's whipped on every traded free agency signing. At me at that. I don't care. It's true. We all know it.
Yeah.
This is why they ride on Scott Harris, because they desperately need to get on the right track and draft him for the first time in 30 years, which sounds so painful to say out loud.
Alavila overstayed his welcome. He kept his job because of his connections within the organization and nothing else. I was just saying before this, I don't think you should get rid of Dave Dombrowski. Everywhere he goes, he wins. And their best, as Mitch is going over this, if people were paying close attention, their best draft years were with him, where he turned those guys into, he packaged those prospects into all-stars.
Yeah.
And you're right, you need both. You can't just sit here and say it's a no-cap sport, so spend the money if you don't have the farm system, because part of why guys end up on different teams is because other organizations are down in the dumps and they would want to take chances on prospects, so then you get their star players in return. And right now, Detroit's got nothing. I mean, the only thing they did this offseason was Matt Vierling, who is an infielder from Philly.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And he's not going to be in the 9-man rotation there in the hitting lineup. He's not going to be. So he's a guy coming off the bench. He's going to be a rotational guy. But they haven't spent money. You also can't, as Mitch said, yes, you can offer money. Doesn't mean the guy is going to offer it. What I will say is classic Alavila. Carlos Correa didn't want that much more than Javi, and he didn't want to give it to him.
Yeah.
Now, hindsight being 2020, I bet Carlos is pretty dang happy about the fact that he didn't choose Detroit, and maybe Javi isn't so much. But you offer the guys a few more dollars because it's an uncapped sport. If you're going to choose to spend money, if that's the choice you're making, I think you throw the dollars at the guy that you want, and you don't take Plan B because the Plan A wanted a little more.
Yeah.
You just don't do that. I.e., the Tigers have done that before, i.e., why they're still paying Miguel Cabrera $91-ish million this year to play in a DH role where he's going to be awful. Yeah. Case in point is when you have a window to pay a guy, you pay him, regardless of what he wants, because of the fact that it is an uncapped sport.
Now, I will say all this too before we transition. With Miguel Cabrera's contract coming off the books this offseason, they're probably going to spend on somebody in this next free agent class. Who it is, who knows? But please let it be a hitter. We're good on pitching. They went on so many pitchers the past 30 years I listed off, for crying out loud.
They really have.
Oh my gosh, it's been bad. But anyway, let's shift from baseball to football now. Lamar Jackson. Wow. So, as of yesterday, it was released, it was made public in a letter that Lamar Jackson requested a trade on March 2nd. He wants a guaranteed contract. The Baltimore Ravens are balking at the situation. McLain, I want to ask for your take first. What's going to happen with Lamar Jackson?
The most likely scenario, I don't know that he finds himself in a different jersey before the start of the season. I know that there are... We've seen this sort of before, right? And I guess the most recent situation in my mind where an organization and a player couldn't come to terms on a contract was Le'Veon Bell. Your Pittsburgh Steelers. Le'Veon Bell didn't play, and well, we all know how the rest of his career turned out. But, unfortunately for my Michigan State Spartan there. But, regardless of that, I don't think that's going to happen to Lamar. I do think, though, he's going to end up having to wear the purple jersey a little longer than he wants. This contract situation is not great. He's requested a trade. They now I can't remember the exact term, but they basically franchise tagged him in such a way where other teams could contact him. Mm-hmm. And I mean, clearly, if he's asking for a trade on March 2nd, there's not many teams knocking at the door, which should be worrisome for a guy like Lamar. I don't know why somebody wouldn't want him. There are teams in the past that have taken chances on a Brock Osweiler, with Houston when he got that big contract post his Denver career. We've had guys take chances on Jimmy Garoppolo. There are plenty of lesser versions of QBs in the league right now to where I think a team should bite on Lamar, but clearly it's not happening.
Yeah, so I see why this is such a struggle on both sides. When you look at Lamar, let's be honest with the Ravens organization. This is the best quarterback they've ever had and probably going to have for a very long time. He's the only Ravens quarterback to even sniff MVP conversation. Now, I get it too at the same time, not that great of a performer in the playoffs. Past couple of years, he's had injury issues. At the same time, though, a guy like Deshaun Watson, who, in my opinion, Lamar's better than, gets a fully guaranteed contract from the dumpster fire we call the Cleveland Browns. Like, Lamar's case of wanting a guaranteed contract and kind of making that thing for the NFL, which they don't have, besides for Watson and for Kirk Cousins, ironically enough, which still boggles my mind to this day. Like, yeah, there's a reason why he's holding up his guaranteed contract, 'cause he's trying to set the narrative for the league for the future. Which also from Baltimore's perspective, like I mentioned, a little injury prone, not that great of a playoff performer at this point in his career, especially like a loaded AFC. You gotta have guys like Mahomes, Burrow, and Allen. It's tricky. Especially now, the reason why I think teams aren't jumping is because A, they see the injury history, they see the stuff too. It's one thing. It's also the guaranteed contract I feel teams aren't going to do. At the same time, though, are any one of these 31 NFL teams really going to help Baltimore in this situation? Let's be totally honest here. This is a situation that needs to be resolved between Baltimore and Lamar, whether it means a divorce, a new deal, or a new team. That has to happen there.
Yep.
Who the team is, I don't know. Personally, I think a dark horse that people aren't talking about is the Minnesota Vikings. Let's be really honest. Kirk Cousins has 1 year left, and if you play him outside of a time slot of 1 p.m. on a Sunday, I'm sorry, he's going to crap the bed. And you look at the NFC, too. If Lamar goes in the NFC North, just in particular, it's him or Goff as the best quarterback. Then you look at the rest of the NFC, outside of Jalen Hurts and Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff, what other quarterbacks have made a really deep playoff run right now? None of them.
Yep.
None of them. So NFC is wide freaking open, and you have guys like Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson, some good pass rushers. A lot of the defensive players they drafted last year were injured. Minnesota's got a chance here as a team that has given a guaranteed contract before to a quarterback. It's an opportunity. I will say this, though, too. If Baltimore screws this up, if they let Lamar walk, they become the AFC's version of the Chicago Bears. Great defenses, can't get the quarterback right, can't get wide receiver right.
I understand you need a guy to be healthy to play, but and how we rank these players is, of course, subjective. Mm-hmm. But in my opinion, when 100% healthy, he is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you want him on your team? If you're Baltimore, you're trying to win. If you're any of these teams, you're trying to win a Super Bowl, of course. But Baltimore is a little closer right now than other teams, of course. And so you need one piece, right? How many times do we come out during the NFL season and we say, well, this team's got everything, but then they've got like Paxton Lynch under center. And then it's like they don't win. And why? Because they're missing the most important piece. So why play with the most important piece? Why play with that?
Yeah.
And then who's the backup? I couldn't tell you. What's his name? Tyler Hunt?
Tyler Huntley. Actually,
Tyler Huntley, right.
Did fairly decent.
He did fairly good, but he's not Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
He's just not. Eventually the wheels are going to fall off with a guy like that. They're not going to win a Super Bowl with Tyler Huntley.
Yeah.
And so, from the Baltimore perspective, I don't know why you wouldn't try to meet him where he is, unless you are very concerned that he's never going to play another full NFL season. At which point, then more power to you, right? You got to make the best decision for your organization. Yeah. But on the player side, which the NFL still lacks player power compared to the other professional sports, he needs to do what's best for him. And so, if they're not going to come to a conclusion, then I think he has all the rights in the world to leave.
Yeah.
Because he's given them everything he can give them.
Yeah.
And maybe he's feeling like that's not being reciprocated right now. And often that's how it is. From the outside looking in, I don't know if these players take it personal because business is business as usual. But from the outside looking in, you think from a player's perspective, they take care of the team, they win the games, they put their bodies on the line, and then they don't get taken care of. And that's how situations like this arise, and that's why the situation with Le'Veon Bell arose as well.
Yeah. One last thing before we transition to another quarterback issue. I think one big reason Baltimore's kind of saying no Lamar is, do you remember who their two quarterbacks were when they won Super Bowls?
Yeah.
Trent Dilfer and Joe Flacco?
Yeah.
They could win with less.
Absolutely.
So.
Well, they had a guy by the name of Ray Lewis and Ed Reed on those teams.
Yeah, true. And they have guys now like Roquan Smith and Marlon Humphrey, but hey, so be it. Different debate for a different day. Let's move on to a different quarterback now. A former back-to-back MVP. Number 12. Not talking Tom and his cat. We're talking Aaron Rodgers. As said on the Pat McAfee show, that he intends next year to play for the Jets. No trade has come through yet, though, which is kind of interesting. Don't you agree?
Yeah, it's the compensation package. So don't know if you saw the report. I'm sure you did. But for the people that didn't, one of the major sticking points here is because the Jets are looking for draft compensation alongside Rodgers in case Rodgers chooses to retire following the one season he would play with the Jets. Basically, the Jets are saying, we don't think this deal as it's structured currently is worth it if the guy is only going to play 1 year. So they're looking for a guarantee somehow from Rodgers that he's going to play 2 years, it sounds like, or they're looking for additional draft compensation from Green Bay to help supplement the fact that if he retires after 1 year, they aren't stuck with nothing, that they do have that draft compensation to hopefully take a QB or whatever they're going to do, right? So that's sort of the situation right now. That looks to be the only reason that this trade hasn't gone through yet. Is they're concerned Rodgers is going to retire after 1 year, and they would like additional draft compensation to offset that.
Yeah, and if I'm Green Bay, I'm telling them to shove it with that, honestly. I mean, let's face facts here. If you look at head coach Robert Saleh, I mean, that whole organization went all in with Zach Wilson a couple years ago. And it, That
didn't work out.
Yeah, so they need a quarterback to save their jobs, essentially, because I'm going to be totally honest, AFC East is wide open this year. Buffalo lost a lot of big key pieces in free agency. I mean, AFC East is wide open. Miami held in a field goal with them with Skylar Thompson, a quarterback in the wild card round in Buffalo. I should tell you how the state of the Bills right now. The Jets know this, how good their defense is. They need to get the quarterback right. And Green Bay realizes all this and has all the power in the world.
Yeah, they've got the leverage.
They've
awesome. Got the leverage.
And as a Packers shareholder, you can smack this smile on my face, even if it was a right hook on Mike Tyson in his prime himself. So, yeah, the Jets really have no say in how this goes, really. It's just pay up for a quarterback that you need. Yeah, he may be there for 1 year. Yeah, he may be there for 2 years. Who knows? But honestly, the compensation of him retiring or not, that's not Green Bay's problem.
Well, I think that, it's not in the sense that to keep Rodgers, you need to... We all know Rodgers at this point. I think more so in the past few years than maybe ever.
Yeah.
And if you... And this goes for any player, I think. But if you get a caliber player of his talent level, you got to convince him to stay. I mean, it's the Jets. The Jets are auditioning if they get him.
Yeah.
This is a 1 year audition. Give him a reason to stay. Yeah. Build the team around him. Spend money where you need to spend money. Draft guys where you need to draft guys. I'm not saying let the guy hold your organization hostage, but at the same time, you've been dreadful for years. Would it be the worst thing to give him a little power, or give him a little say, the way that Green Bay wouldn't? And that's part of the one of the main reasons that he's leaving, is because of the fact, that 2 years ago when they were talking about how he wants to be more involved in front office decisions because of the fact that he is who he is. And we've seen it, and this is the part where the NFL is behind in player empowerment, because in the NBA, LeBron does have some say in what happens behind closed doors, even though he wants to say that he doesn't. We all know he's got some say in what happens. Yeah. And in other sports as well, that's the case. Maybe less so in hockey, but I believe in baseball, if Juan Soto said something, well, maybe you're going to listen to Juan Soto. Yeah. But in the NFL, that doesn't always happen. I think the Jets have to show some initiative, put an olive branch out there, and give him an opportunity to play a role that he wants to play, and I think that gives you the best chance to keep him for more than 1 year. The B side of that is this deal is going to go through, in my opinion. The draft compensation is not going to let it fall through. I think the Jets are just going to play this game for a little while, see if they can't get a couple of draft picks. When it becomes clear that Green Bay is not going to give up those draft picks, they're going to pull the trigger on it anyways. They need Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers and Green Bay are done. It's a perfect marriage for 1 year. They're going to do it eventually.
Yeah, they will. So, move on here to one last thing here, wrap this show up. McLain?
Yeah, my one last thing is we're going to jump back to baseball, people. My one last thing is there's no way he's going to listen to this, but my one last thing is a pledge to Chris Ilitch. Please make Detroit Tigers baseball fun again. Please try to win. Show me in the fan base something that shows that we're trying to win. Because in the last 6 years, while we've been talking about this rebuild, I think we were this close to turning it around, more so in spite of him than because of him. I think that Avila hit on Riley Green and Torkelson, and that was our best chance, but I don't think that had much to do with Chris Ilitch.
Yeah.
I'm begging the owner of the Detroit Tigers, please care about this team a little bit. Don't turn them into the Detroit Lions, where for years everybody wearing the Honolulu blue felt like the Ford family didn't care. They just cared about putting butts in the seats. Don't become that. One, because the Tigers fan base isn't big enough to put butts in the seats while you suck.
Yeah.
It's just not. We've seen the panning when they're not putting the camera on the catcher. There are no fans in that building. Start caring about this team, and we'll start showing up.
Right on. Agree 100%. I don't mind it being kind of empty because it's nice to get my outfield ticket, but by like 7th, 8th inning, I'm like 5 rows behind the visitors dugout. It's kind of nice.
It is.
But keep it a secret. So my one last thing, kind of a hot take here. 4 quarterbacks will be taken in the top 5 in the NFL draft this year. What the order is, it's up for debate. I feel like if you ask me right now, it's going to be C.J. Stroud 1, Will Levis 2, because it's Houston we're talking about. Again, it's Houston we're talking about. It's going to be Bryce Young 4. It's going to be Anthony Richardson at 5.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let me explain everything here. Anthony Richardson is known as a mobile quarterback with a strong arm. You want to see a little more consistency out of him, but you're just not quite sure if he's too much of an athlete and less of a quarterback. Do you know who else had that same issue with him coming out in 2012? Quarterback by the name of Russell Wilson.
Mm.
The difference is Richardson is, built kind of like Cam Newton. And it's been well apparent over the past year with this whole Russell Wilson saga leaving Seattle, going to Denver, that Seattle was in on Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. Yeah, those are the two of the 5 best quarterbacks in the NFL right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they kind of knew what Wilson was. And I also find it really, really weird that, Geno Smith got that massive 3-year extension, that $51 million in the first year, after the Combine. Not before the Combine, after the Combine.
Yep.
And how sweet would it be if with the last first-round pick you get from that Russell Wilson trade, that one of a little lottery ticket on being 5th overall pick, while being the quarterback, that led your franchise for the next 10 years. Because we all know with Seattle, that 5th pick, they may do something wonky with it. The quarterback makes sense, because we all know they do better drafting in later rounds. I mean, Kenneth Walker in the 2nd round, once he got the ball into the offense, he was easily a top 10, if not top 5 running back in the league. Tariq Woolen was a 4th-round pick. Bobby Wagner 10 years ago, 2nd-round pick. Richard Sherman, undrafted. Earl Thomas was a 1st-round pick. Cam Chancellor was taken late. They do better. Josh Hyde was better with late-round picks. And they got a pick at 20, which I think when you look at from pick 6 to probably 80, there's a lot of good pieces you can get. So, yeah, Anthony Richardson to Seattle makes so much sense. Now, I also have this too. About a month ago, I had my buddies Travis and Ty in a group chat ask me straight up who would have the better career, Will Levis or Anthony Richardson. At the time, I felt there was a mold what you could do with Will Levis, like a Josh Allen or Daniel Jones, like I mentioned in the past year, about, he could follow that mold. If this situation happens, Anthony Richardson will probably be the best quarterback out of this class, in my opinion. So, yeah, that's my one last thing.
Okay. All right.
So, anything else you want to throw out here?
No, man. I mean, it's another good episode. Hopefully, people enjoyed some of these topics. These little bit hot in the street topics today, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. We could do a lot of local stuff, but we get a chance to talk some other stuff too.
Absolutely, man.
So yeah, thank you so much for listening. Like, subscribe, follow, all the above. Do what you have to do. Thank you so much for listening. Y'all be safe, and as always, keep your stick in the ice.